Shabbat shalom, everybody. If you don't now, and you're not, if you're watching this live, look for something to write on and something to write with. Hurry, hurry! I'm going to give you 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Now that you're ready, you need 3 dates. You need to write down 3 dates. We're going to go through the rules of Pesach today. There's a reason for that. I usually wait an additional week every year, and then I messed up. So I'm trying to mess up this year. The first day of Av, or Av, see it, is Wednesday, 22nd of March. The 10th day of Aviv is Friday, 30, the 31st, 31st of March. And then the 14th of Aviv is, I think that's on a Wednesday, April, as the sun goes down, April the 5th. These 3 dates are important, and we're going to learn why these 3 dates are important. Okay. So there we're going to talk about the rules of Pesach, and we have to back up before Pesach in order to be prepared for Pesach. We're going to begin. The first step in preparing for this celebration of Pesach I'm having trouble speaking today, is to celebrate the biblical New Year. That's the first step in preparing for Pesach, celebration of the New Year. It is no accident that the verse preceding the Pesach celebration is about the biblical New Year. Shemot, or Exodus, chapter 12, verse 2, says, "This new moon," that'd be this month, "shall be to you the beginning of new moons." It'll be the beginning of months. What does that mean? It's the first month of the year. That's what they mean. It shall be the first new moon or month of the year to you. So we're coming up on the actual biblically mandated, biblically stated first day of the Jewish year. We're coming up on it real quick. The first day of the month of Aviv is the actual biblical New Year. No other New Year celebration that Jews have has anything to do with the Bible or, as far as I'm concerned, reality. Let's see, that's 12:2. This is the month that the children of Israel were led out of Mitzrayim, out of Egypt. Aviv comes from the root av, which means father. More specifically, in Hebrew, the father of something is its origin. Thus, Aviv is the father or origin of the year. See how that works? Aviv marks the beginning of our journey to freedom, observance of the Torah, and forgiveness. We could, and probably should, have a New Year's party on the first night of this month. It's not mandated by the Bible, so there's no mandated day off, but I would suggest if the party goes late into the night, you might want to take the day off, prior to that. You don't call in sick the next day. That is against Torah. But if you set it up so that you can take the day off ahead of time, well, that's a different story. I think that having the celebration would, without a doubt, put everyone in the mood and the mindset necessary to begin the actual preparations for the feast. Just saying, just throwing that out there. So what do we have to do? Well, in the next verse, in verse 3 of Shemot chapter 12, it says, I'm just making that up. here's what it says. You speak to all the Adat. Adat is the Hebrew word for congregations. It's congregation in plural. You speak, of course, he's talking to Moshe. You speak to all the Adat of Yisrael, saying, in the 10th day of this new moon, they shall take to them every man from the flocks enough. It's a Hebrew idiom. It actually says, according to the house of their fathers. That means enough. From the flocks for a house. In other words, if there's only two of you, you don't need a whole lamb, because that's where we're going with this. And he's going to explain what to do if a whole lamb is too much, right? On the 10th day of Aviv, you should procure a lamb or lambs, small or large enough to feed your family and all who intend to eat the Pesach meal. It is very important that we know exactly how many will be attending our feast so that we will make the right purchase. So let your rabbi know if you are attending the service well in advance. Which means I need to know this week. I need to know in the next couple of days. It wouldn't hurt to tell me today. I'm just saying. You may want to remind him if he is forgetful as you get closer to the celebration. In particular, this year, the New Year's, somebody had better call me and remind me like the day before and the day of, because I am very absent-minded. Just throwing that out there. If the members of an observant household are too few to eat an entire lamb, they shall share one, the cost included, with their nearest neighbor. That'd be from Exodus 12:4, the verse after the one I just read. This verse shows us that God does not want us to be wasteful. We should not purchase 10 lambs just in case everyone shows up. We should know who will be there and purchase just enough so that we are not wasteful. This is not a command for God's children to live next to other observant Yehudim or observant Jews. It's not what it is. The easiest way to comply with this law is to celebrate Pesach with your synagogue, with all the Adat. The law is to procure a lamb. We do not have to make the purchase personally if our synagogue is picking it up. We can pay our part of the cost for the meal on or before the 10th of Aviv. On or before the 10th of Aviv, and that is a command by God. So you need to get this paid by, when I put that down, Friday, the 31st of March. By that moment, you should have given your offering for that if you're doing it with us as the synagogue. If you're buying lamb for yourself, you're actually supposed to eat it. Like, let's take an actual example from our group. We have, dang on it. Hold on. Now, I'm not saying that these families have to do this, but this would be a good example of how it could be done. So we have a family that lives in north of Dallas, right? And hi, family. And then they have some friends who, I left her a message to give me a call sometime. She hadn't called me. I just realized that they have a friend, Melody, who lives fairly close to him. Well, between those two, Melody and any of her family members that want to do it, and I've got every name of every family in my head except the one I'm talking about, the Dillingers. Sorry. So the Dillinger family could get together with, who did I just say? Melody's family. I'm sorry, I don't know your last name, Melody. But they could get together and buy the lamb that's necessary for the whole family. But let's say Melody moved off to New York. I haven't heard from her in a while. Maybe she did. Not likely, but she's pretty staunch Texan. But who knows? Let's say she's not available. She's not doesn't even live here anymore. So then this family to buy one lamb would be way too much food for that family, right? Well, what are we going to do? Because this thing's all internet. If they don't know another family that they can get together with to have the Pesach, the only thing I know to tell you is that you can go to your local grocery store that has the butcher's department. They always have something they call kosher lamb. It can't possibly be not Bible culture. Why did I say culture? What's the word I just said? Kosher, not kosher according to the Bible, kosher according to this kosher thing that Israel came up with. So they call it kosher. It's not biblical because the lamb is not the night of the service, right? Don't even know how to slaughter a lamb the night of the service. So here's our fix for that. Our binding on earth and it's bound in heaven. You know about binding and loosing. So my thought is you go to that butcher, you get the stuff they call kosher, because at least you know it's been prepared properly, and you buy enough of whatever part of that lamb that you like, whether it's or the roast, I don't know what parts of the animal are called, ribeye or whatever. You get the part of it that is enough for your family that you enjoy eating, and that's what you will take home and put in your freezer, until it's time to thaw it out so that you can cook it the night of Pesach. That's how you're going to take care of your lamb. The only thing I know to tell you, the only thing we can do. All right. But the requirements for and this is why it's important to ask for the kosher part, because the requirements for the lamb is that it be a male, a year old, without sickness, sores, or injuries of any kind, the lamb or kid taken from the herd of the sheep of the goats. Now, I guarantee you, when they're telling you that this is kosher lamb, it meets all of these categories. That is part of what Israel's kosher laws do. The sheep and the goat were kept together. It must be taken from the herd, which it is. Genesis says it means female, but the Jacinius rather says that this word that comes from verse 5 means female, but the Hebrew text ends in im, which is masculine plural. Bible Works is wrong as well. So this is masculine, not feminine, if you're looking at verse 5, because that's where I'm getting this information. So that's why I was asking for the kosher meat, because all of these things will have been met by these, by this organization that puts out what they call kosher lamb. I hope you understand that. So that way you can buy the part of the lamb that will be enough for your family. And see, that also fulfills God's law for you to eat it with your neighbor, because the only other people that are going to be doing that are going to be other Jews, and they're going to be buying up the other parts of that lamb. You follow what I'm saying? It still fulfills this law, even if we have to do it this way. The only thing it's not fulfilling is that lamb is supposed to be slaughtered on the night before, and there's just nothing we can do about that until some of us start figuring out how to slaughter lamb and cook it and somehow have enough people here to eat it all. Okay. Every observant family who uh, uh, procured the lamb is responsible for the care of the lamb until the 14th day, which, as I said, is April 5th of Aviv. They call that Nissan. That's why I couldn't find that this morning. I was looking for Aviv, and everybody calls it Nissan. I totally forgot about that. We're moving through the same chapter 12, and we're at verse 6. It is acceptable for someone from the synagogue to take care of the lamb on our behalf. So if that were the case, and you had a big synagogue, and there was going to be a big celebration, and they were going to dig big holes in the ground, everybody's going to come together and cook it, then as long as you've paid your part for that lamb to the synagogue by the 10th, then you're more than welcome to be a part of that. That is a big thing, especially among the Karaites in Israel. They actually do this. It's really cool. I watched a video on it one time. It was really, well, a documentary on it. It's really cool. Now, since Pesach often happens during the winter months, poor families of the biblical age brought the animals into their homes so it would not freeze. This later became a tradition with many more traditions tied to it. So it is important to know the difference between tradition and mitzvah, which is commandment, right? Because you're not commanded to bring it in your house. You don't have to do that. You're not commanded to make your kids, love on it and pet on it and treat it like a pet and then be horrified when you slaughter it right in front of them and eat it. I think that's awful. But anyway, I do remember as when I was 4 or 5 years old, I was very young. I was taught how to look down the sights of a gun and how to lead an animal that's running and taught how to hunt. I was literally 4 or 5 years old. So we went out to hunt. This little rabbit took off. I did what I was told. I shot the rabbit. Bounced up in the air, dropped down, and was dead. But at that age, we went and got it. I was, of course, all excited because, everybody was teaching me to be excited about such things. And we took it back to the house, and I watched my uncle, who was, much older than myself, skin that thing right in front of me. It was horrifying, and I never went hunting again. Just saying. All right. Now, uh, in hitting verse 14, it's also identical to, well, maybe not identical. I'd have to look at it, but it says the same thing as Vayikra 23:4. They both say that the Pesach belongs to God. This is not a Jewish holiday. This is God's holiday. Who celebrates it? The Jews. Just saying. The feast is eternal. How's he going to do that if he comes down here and wipes everybody else, everybody out? Oh, he's not going to wipe out the Jews. Okay. Anyway, the feast is eternal because God is eternal, and whatever he creates is eternal. Just throwing that out there. So it says, you shall observe the feast of Pesach in Matzot, if you will, forever. That's in verse 14 of Shemot. You can also find it in verse 17, verse 24, verse 25. Chapter 13, verse 10, and you can find it in Devarim or Deuteronomy 16:3. So God is trying to make us understand that this belongs to him and it's eternal. Why do we celebrate on this particular day? Well, we always celebrate the Pesach on this particular day because it is the anniversary of the day God led the children of Israel out of bondage. We can get that from Devarim 16:1 if you're concerned, interested. But the real reason why we do it is because God said, on the 14th day of Av. In the end, that's really the reason. The place of sacrifice. The lamb must be sacrificed at the place where God's name, his authority, his Torah dwells. Well, that can be the temple. That can be the synagogue. I mean, look at Devarim 16:2 or 16:6 or 16:7. Spells it out pretty clearly. But what if you don't have that? Well, do you live according to God's law? Because if you do, then your home is the place where God's authority dwells. Do you attend an observant congregation in a synagogue somewhere? If you do, that's a place where God's authority dwells. See, God was he's pretty smart. He thought this out before it all happened. He didn't just slap himself and, wow, they destroyed the temple. I did not see that coming. No, see, he set it up. He said the place where God's authority dwells. Well, if you live according to God's law, me and my house, we will serve God. If you're doing that, then God's authority dwells in your home. So it can be done there. It can be done in the home of another Torah observant person. It can be done in your synagogue. And one day, maybe it'll be done in the temple again. We're not allowed to sacrifice the Pesach lamb in our homes or any property we own inside our gates, according to Deuteronomy 16:5. Oh, I forgot about this. Oh, well, but that's covered. If we're buying the lamb from the grocery store, the slaughter did not take place here. Slaughter, the sacrifice in our homes or any property we own. Okay, well, that's like I said, that's covered because we're not doing that in our homes or our property. And I probably should take a look at that. We don't have a Tanakh in here anywhere, do we? Do you have your English one, Donna? Let me take a look at that real quick and see if that. I'm gonna have to look at the English. We don't have the Hebrew one here. Oh, hold on. Oh, I am sitting here getting stiff. All right, so I'm sorry, what? Oh, where is? Okay, let me look this up. Okay, that's not really. If you've got your little handy dandy cheat sheet that I gave you guys, you might want to put a note here. That's not. It's not exactly correct. We're not allowed to sacrifice a Pesach lamb in our homes or any No, that does not say that. On your property, it does not say. In your home, it doesn't say. What it says is that in this English translation, which is a pretty good one, you are not allowed to sacrifice the Passover in any of your towns which Yahweh your God is giving you, but at the place where the Yahweh your God chooses to establish his authority. Okay. Um, in this case, you realize he's establishing um, eventually a temple. It started off as a tabernacle, and that's where the sacrifices were made. Then there was the temple, and then the temple is destroyed. And from that point on, it becomes the synagogue or the home. Because none of these towns, especially for us in America, none of these towns exist here, right? And these are not the towns that were given to us as Jews. So we're not going to break any part of Deuteronomy 16:5 by doing this in our homes or here at this synagogue, which we will be doing here. So if you're coming, you really need to let us know and get your part paid so we can get this thing going. The more the merrier. Everybody can come, Well, we're flying here, but if you can get here, get here. But if not, don't worry about it. If you're going to, just be sure you do it at your home. Just want to make sure of that, because when I read that, I thought, no, it's not exactly right. It's close, but not quite. All right. Ooh, look at, okay, we got to get. I started worrying. Ooh, I haven't been watching the time. Get a drink here. Oops, spilled it. Now, of the firstborn males, all the firstborn males, human and animal, are to be sanctified on the day of Pesach. So if you live out in the country and your animals have had a firstborn male, then you need to sanctify them on the Pesach. So this is also a command for every firstborn to make an appearance before his synagogue until the temple is in place if he lives in Israel. Every firstborn donkey will be redeemed with a lamb, which means that a donation of a spotless 1-year-old lamb or equivalent of the price must be offered to the synagogue or the temple if it's standing. If a person does not want to redeem the donkey, he must make that donkey a pet that never works. That's what the idiom means, break its neck. That means it can't be a working animal. It has to be a pet. But the firstborn males of humans must be redeemed. That's Shemot 13:3. Again, this means that a donation of a spotless 1-year-old lamb or the equivalent of the price must be offered to the synagogue. So if you're doing this, please don't send us an actual lamb. We have no way to feed it. It's too expensive, too much upkeep, and my dog might eat it. You never know. So let's not do that. Just send the money. Okay. There was something else I wanted to say about this. So if you have animals and they've had a firstborn, you need to male, not female, but male, you need to make a donation. And that donation needs to be made by the night of the Pesach. You could send it early on the 10th when you send your other money, as long as you send a note with it to let us know what's what. If on the other hand you've had a firstborn son, that son has to make an appearance. Well, we're an internet organization, so again, as I say every year, you don't actually have to be in this building. Now, that'd be best if you're close enough that you can get here and you can do that, then you probably should. But some of you live clear over on the other coast. We're in the middle of America, and some of you on the East Coast. There are people on the West Coast, and there are people way up north, and probably none down south, but not south of us. We're almost as far south as you can go. But because we're on the internet, we can actually see each other, right? You can see me right now, and Donna over there behind that other screen can see you. If you're actually on where you can be seen, that's kind of up to you whether you could put a picture or actually are seen. So if that happens, then you need to show up on the screen. That's good enough. Binding and loosing hopefully explains all that, why we can change that. Okay. Now, the Pesach meal cannot be moved, according to 1246. It must be eaten in one place, and it cannot be taken from that place. We cannot break the bones. So if you get lamb, make sure you're not buying lamb with some bone that's been cut or broken. And if you can't be sure of that, buy some part that doesn't have a bone in it. That's 46. Now, no congregation is exempt. Every edah, every synagogue in Israel must celebrate the Pesach. Those who cannot eat the Pesach, well, if you are uncircumcised, you are not allowed to eat the Pesach. No matter how much but Rob, we just got in. We love what you teach. We think you got the truth. And all that good stuff. I'm sorry, if you're not circumcised, if you're a male and you're not circumcised, you cannot eat the Pesach meal. If between now and next year you get circumcised, you can come and eat the Pesach meal. You can't make the Pesach meal in the privacy of your own home. You are not allowed to eat the Pesach if you are uncircumcised. Now, if on the other hand you're not Jewish, but you are circumcised, you can eat the Pesach, because this whole law is about it's about the circumcision itself, and that is a must. If you are a friend or an employee or something along those lines of somebody who's Jewish and having the Pesach meal and you're male and you're uncircumcised, you cannot come over to that person's house and eat the Pesach. If, on the other hand, you're one of those things and you are circumcised, you can. Because again, all of this stuff in 45 and 46 and all that, it's all about whether or not a man is circumcised. Is there a punishment for not being uncircumcised? Yeah, you can't eat the Pesach meal. That's it. There's no going to hell over it. And then in verse 48, it sums up and says, no uncircumcised male shall eat the Pesach. So it's pretty important because it's said at least 3 different times and then summed up in no uncertain terms. That's to make us understand that if you're not circumcised, you do not touch this meal. There is a rule in can't think of the Numbers chapter 9 verse 14 that says everyone, convert or Jew, shall celebrate Pesach the same way. So on the same night, you wait until the first sundown before you begin to cook the animal and all that kind of stuff. All these rules that we're laying out here, whether you're Jewish or not, this is how you're supposed to celebrate the Pesach. Now, the first Pesach is on the 14th day of Aviv. And of course, you can find that in Vayikra or Leviticus 23, verses 5 and 6. And then we're supposed to call a holy assembly on the 14th day, which, remember, that begins at sundown on Wednesday this year. So at sundown, that's when the assembly is called. Aviv, which is the first day of the feast, is, again, that's in 12:16, and it's also in 23:7. No occupational work can be done during the holy assemblies beyond that which is necessary for preparing food to eat. Well, that's Exodus 12:16 and Leviticus 23:7. Stay out of your home all night. Yeah, that's a rule. You will stay out of your home all night and return in the morning. That is from Devarim or Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 7. This does not mean that you have to stay awake all night. You can stay in a motel, you can stay in a pup tent, but you cannot stay in your house. It says in Devarim or Deuteronomy 16:16, you will not come to Pesach without an offering. Now, this is not the offering for the food. This is not an offering for the firstborn. This is an offering for the Pesach. So, some years, some of you are going to get hit pretty heavy. I'm just saying, especially if you're young and having lots of newborns, they're firstborns. All right. Now you're supposed to have a barbecue each night. You shall have a barbecue each day of the feast. And I've changed the word to barbecue because that's exactly what it is. That's in Leviticus 23:8. So what do you mean each day? Pesach is one night. Well, they combine Pesach and Matzot together quite often, and this is one of those times. So we have Pesach the first night, and the first night we eat Matzot, and then every night for a week after that we eat matzah, and we're supposed to eat it with freshly cooked off the grill food every single night. You're not eating leftovers from the first night or the second or the third. This is constantly the every night you're cooking something else. Now, we're supposed to take all of the leaven from our houses on the 14th day at evening and keep it out of our houses until the 21st day at evening. That's according to Shemot or Exodus 12:15. 12:19 also says it, and 13:7 also says it. You do not eat leavening during the Pesach / Matzot feast. You can find that in Exodus 12:20 and in Deuteronomy 16:3. You are not to be seen with leavened bread. That's according to Exodus 13:7. No leaven will be found in all the places you dwell and is under your authority. In other words, if you own the place, doesn't matter if you live there or not, it's still under your authority, and the leaven cannot be found there for the whole 7 days. And you can find that in Deuteronomy 16:4. Unleavened bread is called the bread of affliction because it is the bread that reminds us of the affliction of the Mitzrayim, of the affliction of Egypt. That's in Deuteronomy 16:3. Uh, so in the removing of the leaven, then things come up. Well, what if I, live across the United States somewhere and we're going to fly in and celebrate with our synagogue? Well, this was an issue they had in the biblical times because some people lived a long way from the place where the temple was standing. And so they had to do one of two things. They either had to get all of the leavening out of their house before they left and bring it with them, and then as long as it wasn't taken into the temple, that's all they had to do is just keep it with their group. Or they could have somebody go into their house while they're gone and get rid of all that leavening, but that'd be a real gray area there because you're supposed to get rid of it. So what did they do? They got it out of their house. Some took it with them and kept it, and some took it out of the house and gave it away. It's up to you. You can give it away or you can keep it. We give it away. Our neighbors every year get all of the leavening that is in our home. And because I know that our neighbor likes stuffed oatmeal cookie things. What do you call those, Donna? She don't know either. But you buy these little packages and they have the real soft oatmeal cookie on the two sides and the white smushy stuff in between. Because I know he likes that, I buy him some every year. I buy some purposely before Pesach and put it in our little grab bag, and we give that to them on Pesach. You can do little things like that. They of course love us, for that. I'm just saying it's a friendly thing to do. You're not commanded to get rid of it. You're just commanded to take it out of your house and leave it out of your house for an entire week. And that does not mean put it in your garage. Doesn't mean put it in your shed. You need to get it off your property. Remember, it says it can't be on your property. So you have to either leave it with somebody else or rent a locker to put it in, or something like that. Or I think it's great if we just give it away to people we know, because we all know non-Jews who do not celebrate Pesach. And they always, so far for us, they've always appreciated us giving them our stuff. And we've always been able to do that with a neighbor. Just saying. Now, everyone who eats leaven during the feast, whether born in Israel or not, is to be cut off from Israel until the feast is over. And I guess I should mention that some of these laws say in Israel, born in Israel, stuff like that. I hope you understand that that's not literally in Israel or born in Israel. Because if we live a Torah lifestyle, we live in Israel. If we live a Torah lifestyle, we are of Israel. Anyway, I won't go into that today, but I could, because I have so many times before. So we can't eat this. Everyone who eats the leaven is to be cut off. That's Exodus 12:15 and 12:19. They cannot attend the closing celebration. They cannot attend the Shabbat service. They cannot communicate with those who are faithful. Also, if a man is clean during the first Pesach and does not celebrate it, he is to be cut off from Israel. That's from Numbers 9:13. So to be cut off is something you do. It's not something we do. Now, if I happen to see you eating a hamburger at McDonald's during the matzot season and you start to step in the front door of this synagogue, I'm going to say, whoa, buddy, you're not welcome here today. Because not being allowed to be among your Jewish brothers and friends is the punishment. You can't go to the synagogue. You can't celebrate the feast. You can't be a part of that. That is your punishment. You don't go to hell. There's not all this residual stuff that happens. That is the punishment, because you're not supposed to eat this stuff. So once it's over, then you can rejoin your family of Jews. But that's really up to you to do the excommunicating there. We're supposed to eat matzah each night from the 14th until the 21st day of Aviv, as a reminder that God brought us out of Egypt, out of bondage, quickly. Remember, it didn't have time to put the yeast in it and get it to rise. And boy, does that show up in a lot of places. It's in Exodus 12:15, 12:18, 12:20, 13:6, Leviticus 23:6, Deuteronomy 16:3, and 16:8. So we need to take that pretty seriously, right? They're trying to let us know you got to eat that matzah. The lamb for each observant family will be killed as the sun is going down on the 14th day of Aviv, which is the anniversary of the night that God brought the children of Israel out of bondage, according to Deuteronomy 6:16. It says, Ba'arev kevo ha-shemesh, in the evening, kevo, as the sun goes down. So we don't wait till it turns completely dark. We start as soon as that sun starts, we call it first sundown because it's gone over the horizon, but the light is still with us because it hasn't gone very far over the horizon. And then as it gets further over the horizon, then it gets dark, real dark, right? So as it goes down, that was the key here to this verse in Deuteronomy 6:16. Now, in the first Pesach, there was the added placing the blood on the doorpost and the lintel. There was the placing of the blood of the lamb in the basin, the dipping a basting brush in the blood in the basin so that you could paint the blood on the lintel and both of the doorposts. Once the blood was applied to the doorpost and the lintel, no one was allowed to leave their home until after the sun came up the next morning. The blood was placed on the door only on the night of the first Pesach to physically keep the destroyer from killing the firstborn. It was a one-time thing. However, we could place a red cloth over our door and doorpost as a reminder. Donna does that every year. But here's the other thing. It's jumped out of my head. Oh, the first Pesach, the blood was put over the door to keep us in. You notice from Deuteronomy, from that, because it was to protect us. Put that blood over that doorpost, and we would be protected. Now, as a show of God's victory, our victory given to us by God, we don't go back into the house after we eat the Pesach meal. That's what I was trying to think of. Now, the cooking of it, it says to roast the lamb in fire in 12:9. Do not eat it raw, also in verse 9. Do not eat it boiled in water, verse 9. Cook the head, legs, and body together. This is an idiom. It means that of all the parts that you're going to cook, you cook it all together, meaning you cook it all at once. In other words, you don't cut it up and save stuff for later. Whatever it is that you've brought for the Pesach, the whole thing needs to be cooked all at once. And the way that was said in biblical Hebrew was cook the head, the legs, and the body together. That did not mean you were supposed to cook the head, the legs, and the body. There are parts of it, in particular the head, that should not be cooked with the lamb. But quite often is now because of the lack of recognition of a Hebrew idiom. We also have to eat the lamb at night while it's still dark. We have to eat matzot, and we have to eat bitter herbs. We have to do that. We have to eat these three things with a belt on our hips, which back then would have been a rope. And so here we have ropes cut that we use for our belts that night, just in remembrance. Shoes on our feet. Yes, you have to be wearing shoes. You have to be wearing a belt. You have to have a staff in your hand while you're eating this meal. That's according to Shemot, or Exodus chapter 12, verse 11. And you have to eat it in a hurry. So this whole dragging the meal out for hours on end is not according to God's law. You have to eat the meal in a hurry. So if you're going to have a Seder, you need to get through the book first and then eat your food. Okay? Or go through the Seder very quickly, because you're supposed to eat it fast. Because they were in a hurry that night. That's the whole point. Now we have to dispose of the leftover. It says that we have to burn the leftover lamb in the fire so that no part of the lamb's flesh will remain until the morning. Exodus 12:10 and Deuteronomy 16:4. Now, there is a second holy assembly. We're supposed to call a second holy assembly on the seventh day. So the way this works is, if it starts on a Wednesday night at sundown, it will end on a Wednesday at sundown, right? Because you have the Pesach and then you have the matzot. That's one right after the other. The very next night after Pesach is the first night of matzot. So it's going to be, if it's on a Wednesday, it'll end on a Wednesday. It'll start on a Tuesday, ends on a Tuesday. It's pretty simple to figure out. It says that no occupational work will be done on the seventh day of the feast. So you need to have already probably taken that day off. If you haven't, you kind of need to get that done like Monday. Then there's the second Passover. If a person is not clean during the first Passover, according to the laws of purity in the Bible, he or she can celebrate the Pesach on the 14th of the second biblical month. It must be celebrated in exactly the same way that the first one is celebrated. So you might need help from your rabbi to figure that out. That's why I made this cheat sheet. It's kind of like having me there without me having to be there. But that is according to Numbers chapter 9, verses 12 through 12, it says. Now, during the ceremonial part of eating the Passover meal, we're supposed to teach our children to ask the following question on Pesach, or about Pesach. What is this service? Ma ha'avodah hazot. What is this service? And that's, of course, in Exodus 12:26 and 13:14. It's in there twice. So they can say Ma ha'avodah hazot. Learn it that way, and your kid will get it. You can either teach them to say that, or they can just say, what is this service? It's okay to say this in English. It does not have to be said in Hebrew. We're supposed to give our children the following answer. This day is a day to remember. It is the Pesach sacrifice to Yahweh, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt when he struck down the Egyptians and delivered us in our homes. Exodus 12:27. Because Yahweh did this to us when we came out of Egypt. That's 13:8. The Pesach meal will be something that gives us strength. It says it's a sign on the hand. That means it gives us strength. And something we should always remember. What it says is a memorial between our eyes. That means you're supposed to remember it always. That's an idiom. So no, you don't need something on your forehead. Doesn't hurt to have the Torah, bits of the Torah on a box on your forehead. Doesn't hurt anybody. There's no problem with that, but that's not what it means. The children of Israel were taken out of Egypt so that Yahweh's Torah will be our main topic of discussion. It will be in our mouth, it says. That means it'll be our main topic of discussion. Because Yahweh brought us out of Egypt with, says, a strong hand, with great power. By the strength of his hand, by his power is what that means. Yahweh brought us out of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. Oh, I'm cutting this close, aren't I? And it came to pass, because Pharaoh made it difficult for us to leave, that he killed all the firstborn. That's a capital He, that God, that he killed the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn man to the firstborn animals. Therefore, I slaughter to Yahweh. This, remember, we're answering our child. I slaughter to Yahweh barbecue to Yahweh all that are firstborn males of the womb, and all my firstborn children I redeem. And it will be a sign on your hand, which means, and it will give you physical strength. And it says, be the bands between your eyes, which means, and be the strength of your mind. For by the strength of hand, with great power, Yahweh brought us forth from Egypt. And it will come to pass, when Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them into the way of the Philistines, for it was near. For God said, lest the people regret leaving because of war and turn back to Egypt. And God turned the people to the way of the wilderness of the Yam Suf, Reed Sea. They call it the Red Sea. I don't know why. The children of Israel went in groups of 5 out from the land of Egypt. And Moshe took the bones of Joseph with him, for Joseph swore an oath to the children of Israel. In other words, made them swear to him, God will reconcile with you, and you will carry my bones away with you. And they journeyed from Sukkot, that's a place, and set up camp in Etam, another place, at the edge of the wilderness. And Yahweh walked before them during the day in a pillar of cloud, and led them on the path by night in a pillar of fire, a light for them to walk by day and night. He did not remove the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night in the presence of the people. He was always there. I have run out of time. I have covered all that I can think to cover. Shalom v'shalom, everybody.
The blessing, בעברית. Yahweh beyish meracha. Ya'er Yahweh panai v'lecha vihunacha. Yisa Yahweh panai v'lecha v'yasim lecha shalom. And in English, may Yahweh cause you to lie down so that you may rest. May he touch and caress you. May he prepare you for what is ahead. May he watch over you. May he keep you from harm. May he cause goodness to grow in you and take away the bad. May he arrange your life and cause you to flourish. May he cheer you up and gladden your heart. May he cause his light to shine through you. May he show you tenderness, favor, and love in his presence. May he show you kindness and be delicate towards you. May he show you his generosity, mercy, compassion, and desire for you as it comes forth from the depths of his soul. May he lift you out of your pit and deliver you from the things that hold you prisoner. May he draw you to his chest and cast his eyes on yours. May he show you his love and desire for you as he cradles you in his arms. May he bear your punishment and pardon you of your sin. May he take you for his bride. May he establish a foundation in you. May he place his name on your heart and mind and make your body his temple. May you be his treasure. May you always be on his mind. May he draw you near and comfort you when you are afraid. May he assure you there is nothing to fear because he is with you. May you and all that concerns you be at peace because he is your friend. Amen.